Hi, I'm Ladon Sams with JR Americas, and today we're going to go over the Xbus system. I've had a lot of questions about Xbus and how to set it up and stuff like that, so what we'll do is we'll go through some of the benefits and reasons of why you would want to use Xbus. So what we'll do here is we'll start with what we have sitting here. First off, I have the JR XB2 hub. This hub allows me to hook two batteries up to it. Also allows two receivers that are hooked up to it for a complete redundant system. On one receiver, it's advisable to use the RA03TL satellite. That makes one receiver a little stronger than the other one because it's going to fly off of the stronger receiver all the time. If it loses this receiver, the second receiver will take over. Same way goes for the batteries. So that would be why you would want that satellite. I'm just going to set him off to the side because we're not going to use it. What I've got here is I have three JR 8717HV regular PWM servos. I have 5 of the NX 6421 mega servos. These here are programmable, these here are just regular PWM servos. I'll explain how the converters work, which we have an XB1 PC4 converter, has 4 leads coming out. And we can also use the XB1 CV1, which just has one converter and one lead coming out of it. Some other accessories. For like in the tail, you would use this harness, which this harness here does not have a converter in it. It's just basically a Y harness, has a Dean's end on it, so that way you can get power to your servos and have a very good power distribution system. And that would be using this setup right here, which will have one extension that goes back that'll plug in to here. And then it'll also have the Dean's plugs into there, gives you total power to your servos, so you're not losing anything through your connectors on your servo connectors or through the wire, for the wire being small for if you have plenty of servos on there. You can also use this same setup on the converter and plug it in, and you would mount this in the tail using a silicone wire and adapter to go back and your long extension. So what we'll start off with here is we're gonna fire up the 28, and what we'll do is we are gonna program this converter to operate on the PWM servos. So we'll plug it into there. Does not matter which one you plug it into. It makes no difference on this hub. You can plug it into any one and it'll still operate. We have one Xbus out port up here that is powered, that you can use like a servo directly out of it, or you can run it up to another 6-pin hub or whatever that you would like to use if you're going to run, say, a throttle servo, retract servo, smoke, and stuff like that. So what we'll do, these leads here are numbered, so we're just going to plug in a servo to each one here that we have. And so you can see them. I'll just stick an arm on here so you can see that they move and do what we want them to do. Okay, so what we'll do here is we're going to go into our menu, to the Xbus menu, bring that up. We're going to use servo converter, and it'll bring this page up. Now what I'm going to do is I'll turn this on, Okay, the first thing that I'm going to do here, I have no idea what this converter's ever been set up for, so I'm going to do an ID reset. So I will punch ID reset. It's going to ask me if I want to reset it, and it'll default everything. So I said yes. Alright, now, once it's been reset, everything will operate as a throttle. If you notice, I move the throttle, servos move. Okay, on the converter, we have numbers on our leads here. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So what I want to do is I want to take, we'll take the number 1 lead and we're going to make that a rudder. So I'll change the 1 up here to the rudder that I want. And since I only have 1 servo, I'm just going to leave it servo ID'd as number 1 servo. Take that back. I just did that incorrectly. There's a good point for people to see. This ID up here is the one that's going to change. So since this is a throttle, we'll leave this one at throttle, and that we're changing the number 1 lead. Down here is where we want to put the rudder, and then we're going to hit set. And now it says success. So now the one that is on that lead is going to operate with a rudder. See? Okay. So let's say we want to make this one an elevator servo. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up here and I'm going to change this back to 1 because it converted that, since that was what we converted to. And I'm going to take lead number 2. And I want to make that an elevator. So we're going to make him an elevator, and we'll make him servo number 1. We'll hit set. Now this servo here operates as an elevator. Okay, and as you notice, it changed this back up here. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go through and we're going to change lead number 3. So we got channel 1, lead number 3, because everything's defaulted to channel 1. And we're going to change him to servo 2 down here. We'll hit set. Now you can see we have 2 of them operating as an elevator, 1 operating as a rudder. You can use the 4th lead for whatever you'd want. If you had 2 rudder servos, you could set it up for rudder servos. So now what we'll do is we'll go into our setup here. So we're going to change the elevator number 2 servo by changing the parameters here. If we want to change number 1 servo, I can go here, change it to 1, and now it will change these parameters on number 1 servo. Since we were on 2, we'll just go back to 2, and we'll leave it there. Now I want to reverse this servo, so I can hit reverse and set. Now if you watch, they move opposite directions. Now if I want to change the travel adjustment of that servo, I can go over here and I have to figure out which one's moving it. And I can change this here to say 10, and it'll move a lot further. And as you can see, as I tap that, it's giving me more throw on that servo that direction. Now if I want to go the other direction, I can move it. Whoops. Well, the old fat fingers here. We need to change that to 10. And now we'll change that throw there. We can change that throw by going the other way. Once we have our throws set, we hit set. You need to hit set on both of them. And then that way, that one will move how far we want it to move. Now this is our neutral setting. So we can set our neutral point. So we can do the same thing here. We can turn that up so it'll move a lot, and then once you get close to where you want it, you can make the numbers smaller on each one of these and fine tune it. So if I sit here and start moving that, you can see the neutral of that servo is now moving as I tap it. Okay, that's where I want it. I hit set. Okay, that's the parameters on the converters that you can set. You have more parameters back through here, but the converter does not allow you to use these because the servo is not programmable. But that's basically how you set up a converter. Now, if you want to set up another converter, we'll say, for instance, I was going to plug this converter in up front here, and I wanted to set up a servo on it. And I went and I pulled this lead out and I plug it into this one. It's going to operate probably as a throttle because that's what it's set up for. Now, if I do an ID reset with this converter plugged in also, it's going to reset the whole works back to channel 1. It'll all revert it back to the default channel if you do an ID reset. So, once you have a converter set up, it's ready to go. All your parameters are set, just like I showed you. The best thing to do is unplug that particular one so that it cannot be altered. And now you can go through here and you can do an ID reset on this. We'll do it here. And that should reset the ID, which this was already a throttle, so it's no big deal. I mean, it was a throttle to begin with. But now I want to change this. We'll say I want to use this converter on I need to go back to 1, and then that's going to be lead 1 that's on here. And we'll say I want to change this to, say, channel 5. So we're using it for flaps, we'll say. And we'll just change that to 1. Hit set. Now this should operate off of one of my switches on here there. It's operating off of this switch and making it work. Now if I was to do an ID reset, I'll just show you real quick here. I'll plug this one back in. As you can see, we still have elevator there, rudder on that one. This servo here is now set up on the other one, so it's running that. Now, so you see how this works. If I do an ID reset, it will reset everything. Now, as you see, it reset both converters to the throttle again. So you got to make sure you unplug things if you're going to do an ID reset. Because see, now we have no elevator, no throttle or anything, or it's all just throttle, no rudder. They're all set up on throttle once again because it reset all of these to default, which is the throttle channel. And then it'll reset each one of these leads to these numbered leads. So your ID number behind is going to be the lead number here. So whichever lead it is you want to change, that'll be this number. Okay, that pretty much does the converters. Now what we'll do is I'll get this stuff out of the way, and we are going to use the NX servos. So we'll plug this in here like so. And like I say, I would mount this in the tail, you know, and set it up for the tail and use the other leads. But these here, what we're going to do here is we'll do an ID reset. We'll see what these are all set up for, and then we'll do an ID reset, and that'll reset everything to whatever, well, reset them all back to the throttle, and then we'll go through and I'll show you what happens if you don't unplug. So we'll stick some arms on here. The plus side to the NX servos is there's a lot more parameters that you can set up, and I'll get into them here as we go. I'll show some of them parameters. Some of them are really beneficial. So we have our servos plugged in. Okay, we have 3 of them that are aileron. 1 of them's a rudder. So what we're going to do is we're going to do an ID reset here. So we'll go through here and we're going to hit ID reset, and yes. And it'll reset them. Should reset them. Maybe I need to put 1 in here. Once in a while, you'll find that in order to reset them, you might have to cut the power and turn the power back on. Okay, now as you can see, they're all throttles. Alright, now the thing is if you do not unplug these and program them, an ID amount, whoops, wrong one again. This and here's the one you're going to change. You know, that's the, and on the servos, everything's going to default channel 1, servo 1. It'll all default number 1. It's not going to be 1, 2, 3, and 4 up here like it is on the converter. The converter is altogether different than this. Each servo is channel 1, 0, 1. So as you'll see here, if I change this to 2 and I do a set, now all of them are aileron, which is what you don't want, because now you can't individually set them. Every setting is going to be the same. So what you got to do is you ID all your servos individually. So now that we got 1 put in, that's going to be aileron number 1. Now, once it's been ID'd, you don't have to do this. You don't have to unplug it. Well, since they're all ID'd the same, we are too going to have to. So what we'll do is we're going to reset these, and I'll unplug the 1. And we'll do the reset again here, and that way everything goes back to 1. Still going to do the same thing. I don't know if it's because there's a lot of servos ganged up here that it's doing that. But the main thing on an ID reset is you have to remember that it's going to change everything that's plugged in. So we're going to set these all up, say it's for a wing. So this is going to be our number 2 servo. So what we're going to do is we'll go 1, 1 up there, and we're going to make him servo number 2. Set it. That one's done. Now we'll plug in, and it don't matter which lead you use. It makes absolutely no difference. So we're going to make this one number 3 servo. This is if you was going to use all the ailerons on the same one. You want no differential or anything like that. So now he's set. And then we're going to go to the last one. And we're going to go back to 1, 1. And we're going to change him to number 4. Okay. So now all of our servos are ID'd. So now we can plug them all in. If you're doing this on an aileron that has 2 servos per aileron, you're gonna not want your linkages hooked up on one of them on each wing, because if it happens to be going backwards or something like that, or your travels ain't the same to where they match up, it'll tear an aileron in half, which that will happen with the regular setup also. Alright, so now we're on our aileron number 4 servo. So what we'll do is we'll go over here, and we can see they're all going the same direction there. So let's say he needs to be reversed, so we can just set it. Now see, it's going the opposite direction. If we want it normal, we can set it back. Now he's going the right direction. Your servo reversing's right here. Travel, everything is all right here. So let's say we want more throw on that one. So we'll give him more throw and set it that way. We'll go here, we want more throw. We'll set him that way. Now, as you can see, that servo has more throw. And that's how you can balance up your setup. Same with neutral. It's just like the others. We can sit here and move them, and the servo moves. Hit set, and it'll stay. If you do not hit set, it'll keep it until you unplug it or turn it off, and then it'll revert back. So you always have to hit set. Now, here's where the nice thing comes in. If you have a jittering servo, you got one that the elevator or the aileron sits there and jitters, you can go in here and you can set that. A lot of people say it's worn gears. They say that the deadband's too tight, this, that, the other thing, and it's really not any of them. It is your gains. They have the same gain parameters, just like like the helicopters do on the tail on the gyros. They have a gain in them. So if your servo's jittering, you can punch this up and you can turn the gain down. Maybe like that, and hit set. You just keep going down, and it'll just quit jittering, set. If you don't feel it's holding quite as good, you can run your gain up in there and hit set, and that'll set the gains in that particular servo to where your jittering quits, and you can bump it up a little bit if you want it to hold a little bit more. Down here you can change a deadband. You really don't need to. I mean, default's generally pretty good, but if you want a wider deadband, you can go up or down if you want it tighter. Whichever way you'd want, you just hit set and it puts it in. Boost over here is if the initial hit of the aileron, you need a little bit more power, you feel you want a little